always when you start with a church, you have to learn their specific liturgy, and so this is very unique. All right. Hi. Thanks for coming. I'm always leery when it's advertised that I'm going to stand up and speak, because that could be bad, could lower attendance. We say, oh, you know what? I can skip that one. So I'm always telling them, you probably shouldn't advertise I'm going to be there. I like to surprise them. So tonight's kind of twofold. I do have a lesson if we do need it. But I also wanted the opportunity. COVID has COVID has been a challenge for everybody, all of us, and continues to be. And oddly enough, I work at a hospital. So that was an interesting experience in and of itself. But two things. My whole point is that even though we stood up and joined the family a year and a half ago, we still feel new. Still feel like visitors because of online participation and then just COVID and social distancing and all of that. And once again, I'm always doing this, but yeah, we stood up one week, and the next week we shut the church down. So always still continue to not take that too personal. This week, to add on to that, Marcia emails me that there's no Bible reading. I was like, I do it once and I'm fired. Can I get a second chance? But I appreciate the high standards. That's what I like. I like the high standards. But so twofold. So tonight and also Sunday school, Sunday morning. Go ahead and warn you. Let you know about that one. Since Steve is out, I'm leading up the Sunday school, and Bill will be preaching. And so I said yes to these two opportunities, as primarily just so you can get to know me, and I can continue to get to know all of you. Because COVID has made it interesting. When you're extended visitors, trying to get to know people. Because that's the other thing about COVID is like, even if we were able to come to the building, a lot of people haven't felt comfortable, which I completely understand. We're still learning about it as we move forward with this. But so where to begin? I guess, how about very briefly, I'll just kind of give you my resume, so kind of everybody kind of knows why I'm doing the outreach ministry thing. Because I've spent time with Bill. We've had a lot of conversations over the past year, and spending visiting with elders and everything. And so I'm not new to it, so to speak. But like I said, so to start off, I do work at Children's Hospital in pastoral care, but I've been through the chaplain training, like chaplains at hospitals or prisons or the military go through, but I am not a chaplain per se. It's a busy day if I get called in. How about that? I'm the C team. I'm the third stringer if there's serious need, and that's happened a couple times where I have to go in and spend time with families. And we're also the Office of Decedent Affairs. And so every death at both hospitals, OU Medical Center, the adult hospital, and at Children's, I see the paperwork and I process the paperwork, and I interact with funeral homes and with families to care for their loved ones. But I'm essentially, I've moved up. We've joked about it, me and my manager. I've moved up over time from receptionist to operator to secretary. And so now I'm a pastoral care coordinator. I'm the office manager. I handle the stuff so the chaplains can go out and do their work. I do the admin stuff. But as with anything, I don't have to tell myself this or remind myself, but it's a ministry in and of itself. It's a privilege to work with families in their losses and share with them some materials for dealing with that and helping them make final arrangements. A lot of times people aren't prepared and don't know what to do, and so I have a chance to kind of walk them through the next few steps, and then we also, just like in anything else, we have to work within within the law, and each state is kind of unique in how it happens, how bodies are handled, and who does what, and so on. So there's kind of helping people guide through that. So I'm in my 4th year there. So to kind of go as briefly as possible, Autumn warned me when I left, remember, you're a talker. Because we were discussing when I was going to be home. So I'm not offended if you get up and leave. I'll understand. Oh, it is time to go. So I didn't grow up in the church, and my parents didn't. My parents aren't believers. My grandparents didn't. Very just short comments. My dad's dad died when I was 77. When I was 6, I have one memory of him. We didn't spend any time together. And my mom's dad died when I was 6 months old. And he was an alcoholic all his life. And he got pulled over for a DUI, and he died in jail because of the DTs. He had a seizure and died. I was 6 months old, so no memory of him. So my dad's mom, she was the closest to a believer, but she lived in Texas. We're all from Texas Panhandle. Sometimes I say that just because the rest of Texas is just, it's too different. You travel from DFW to San Antonio, Austin to Houston. That's, in my book, that's a nightmare. That's too much construction. That's too much traffic. And Texas is way too big. But my dad's mom, my grandmother, she was a church secretary that was at the Baptist church that was right behind her house there in Amarillo. But not a lot of input there. So went to college. It turns out in college at OU the first time around, they still don't offer degrees for extracurricular activities. So they asked me to leave. Because they did have a standard, and I still landed below their standard at the time. I am, but it just turned into I was an alcoholic. And so I hit rock bottom about 1995, and everything else in the world hadn't worked, and I thought, I'll give this God thing a try, because I had a couple people along the way tell me some things. I was like, well, nothing else is working. I know that's an odd way to approach it, but that's where I was at the time. And so Autumn and I had met at OU. We were both in the marching band. We were in the Pride, and so I try to keep it under control or whatever. But I'm a virulent. I'm a zealot for the Sooners. I have no idea how many times I have played Boomer Sooner, but it's many, many, many times. So we met there, but if you guys don't know this, she's a preacher's kid, but she's not the typical preacher's kid. She turned out real well. I'm the most rebellious she's ever been, so we had a similar circle of friends, but we were kind of too different. So, but in 1995, we kind of reconnected going into 1996. We're hanging out and friends, and our paths in lives had kind of brought us a little closer together, a little more similarity. And but she basically, as we were hanging out, and we kind of started having feelings for each other. She kind of just said, because by this time we were 96, we're approaching 25 years of age. I'm not into dating. I'm not into the whole idea of just dating for fun or whatever. If dating is something, that's a serious step. We're working towards something. but I'm not going to date anyone that's not a believer, someone that's not in the church. And I don't want to commit my life to someone unless they want to be a Christian themselves, a Christian husband, a Christian father. And she was saying to me this, and I wasn't just kind of saying it to win over. I said, I kind of want that too. So I started going to church, and in 1996, and I think I've mentioned a few people, so in 96, I attended church services more than I had the previous 25 years of my life. So I was nowhere. I was regularly using the table of contents. I didn't know anything about anything. And meeting Autumn's dad, he died a couple years ago from Parkinson's. And he won me over. He was the first preacher I was kind of comfortable around. And he was also the real deal. He was very genuine. And so everybody that was there at the church, as I started visiting, it was very genuine and won me over. And so this was Harmony Christian Church, and so my only church background is the Restoration Movement, is Stone Campbell. November 10th, 1996, I was immersed. I confessed Christ and was immersed, and been a believer. And he got hold of me. I don't know if it's by being an adult or because of my background story of how broken I was, but he was, from that moment, now you can look back, you can see it, but he was hounding me to do more, not just as a regular volunteer, a regular member. He was, when God wants you, he's tenacious. And so a few years go by, I'm reading the Bible, I'm studying, I'm trying to take it all in. And so 2001, I was like, all right, so God wants more out of me. And so since independent Christian churches, the closest schools we have are Dallas Christian College or Ozark Christian College. And those weren't really options. I enrolled at Oklahoma Christian, and I enrolled a week late, and so I ended up only getting Bible classes. Yeah. Which was obviously a God thing. I learned a lot from those professors and from those classes, critiquing sources, what are good and bad publishers, what to look for, and so on. So I was immersed November 10th, 1996. November 20th, 1996, I asked Autumn to marry me. She did say yes. And April 12th of 97, we were married. In March of 2001, so I'd been in school a couple of months, we found out we were pregnant with Adam. And we've been living in apartments. We've been saving up as much as we could for a house. And so the pregnancy meant, all right, time to get a house. And so that was the one semester I did, because then we moved into Midwest City in July of that year and got a graveyard job with Kinko's, so that I could stay home with Adam during the day. And so Autumn was with him at night. Church-wise, out of the classes, just out of that one experience, that one semester at OC, because I didn't know anything, and because I was a brand new believer, that's always where my heart has been for others. And so out of taking those courses, I went to Gary, I went to the leaders at Harmony and said, hey, what do you think about like a new believers class, a Bible 101 class? And so we started that fall, and the amazing thing is that when I asked them in the spring, the people that attended weren't there yet. But talking to their stories and kind of getting it or whatever, they started kind of visiting with family and kind of coming in the spring and the summer or whatever. So then when we offered that class, they were there. And in the midst of that, God was there. It was obvious. I wholeheartedly believe it was a God thing from beginning to end. 7 people were immersed over the next couple of years because of that class and offering that and the visitors. And that's where my heart truly is bringing people into the kingdom. And my work, my focus. There's no question that scares me. I don't run away from them. I like them. Many times, especially my work on a college campus, I would teach them, oh, you're not skeptical. Here's how skeptical is. And so I would teach them better skeptical questions, because this is what I had to overcome on my own. And they're like, oh. And so I run to that. And so I spend a lot of time science and religion discussions on campus. But I'm getting ahead of the game there. So we have Adam. We're working. We're living. Sunday school teacher. Jordan's born in 2006. And even as I was serving Sunday school, God was always right there going, yeah, I called you, but this is not it. There's more. So Autumn and I talked about with some of my advisors, and so in 2007, because of online school, I started at Dallas, taking some courses there. But not only that, by the end of that year, because you can get all the kind of Bible smarts you want, and and online, I'm not knocking on it. It's a great opportunity and gift for anybody that wants to finish the school. But if you're wholeheartedly into going to Bible school for ministry, there's that one little piece that's missing, and that's just the interaction. And so I went to the church leaders and I said, hey, I'm doing this, whatever. What do you think about some kind of glorified internship, working on staff or something, young adult minister? And they said yes, and and so I quit Kinko's and went full-time into vocational ministry in 2007. And I was young adult minister at Draper Park Christian Church for 3 years. And that's where he is my mentor. He's not there now, but Jay Berry, that's where he was. I learned a lot from him. He put a lot of effort into training me, going over things, church leadership, church administration, all that stuff. Had a college group there, Sunday school. It was the whole thing. I was part of the staff. We'd take turns preaching. We did have a preaching minister, but we'd fill in from time to time and so on. But the thing about, I think everyone here readily admits, the thing about young adults, especially now, our 20-year-olds now, or our teenagers now, vast majority don't show up at the church. They aren't regular attenders. It's not primary on their minds for a big chunk of them. And my heart was for college students who are non-believers. And so there was a lot that I was learning. It was a very important chapter in my life, but once again, God was like, no, we're a little bit closer. I need you to do more. So I talked to the elders and the staff, and I basically went to Jay and I said, where do you think this is going? We've been doing this for 3 years. And where do you see this going? And he said, well, either you go to an established campus ministry at a college somewhere, you go to a church that has a church-based college ministry, or you start your own. And I said, funny you should say that. Bam! And I had this paperwork, and I kind of put this whole idea together, put a plan together, and now I've lost the things. This isn't a bit. I'm not doing this on purpose. And so that was springtime of 2010. And so June of 2010, I planted the campus ministry at Oklahoma City Community College, and started with nothing. Just started showing up, taking some classes, and because to me that's the best way to do it. Is if you're gonna be with people and you need to reach people, you got to be in the midst of the people. And there's no easier way to do it than taking classes at a college. And so actually it was a philosophy course. I met two of my main guys, and so they helped me start, because it's about the students and everything. So did that until for 7 years, 2017. But much like the struggle of missionaries and campus ministers in general, but funding is the challenge. And we had lost a couple of churches, and some of our supporters had passed, and no one had stepped in. And but I also feel like that that chapter was kind of closing. And so from there, I did some work. I started as a volunteer, but then I worked overnights on the weekends. Within ministry and my heart for college students and for non-believers, more specifically, I feel very strongly about suicide prevention and suicide awareness. And that was something that we started as a ministry on campus, was Suicide Awareness Week. September is the month, which has the week, which has the day. And we would set up a table, and we started out, we handed out candy, but then we started handing out Pop-Tarts. We'd have little trays of napkins and hand out Pop-Tarts. But I worked with the student services, a really great lady. She is a Christian also, and she was the campus counselors, licensed clinical social worker. A lot of information from them. So we had stuff about PTSD. We had stuff about how to talk to your friends if you're concerned they're suicidal, and so on. And we had a lot of conversations out of that. And so we would do that each semester for several years. And so I went from there. I worked at the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, answering the calls that people would call in. And that was that was a privilege. It was not easy, but being there and being to listen and talk to people when they would call in. So many times, many of the conversations were, I'm not suicidal, I don't have anybody to talk to. Well, here's the benefit of the 800 number. It's 800 327-8255. And I said 8255, if you look at an old phone, 8255 spells talk. And that's a big part of what we're doing here is talking. So you just talk, whatever's on your mind, whatever's bothering you. And so there's so many conversations, and that's a ministry thing, by the way, is there's so many people around us that have no one to talk to. We're in an urban center, we're in a city, we're constantly surrounded by people, but nobody's talking to anybody. Or nobody's listening to anybody. So we wanted a church closer to home. There was some stuff that had happened at Draper, and it was time for us to move on. And so as we started visiting, we started looking, we wanted something closer to home. Wanted to remove as many barriers to participation as we could. Take away it's too far, it'll be too late, we can't get there on time. So if you pick a church that's less than 5 minutes away, all that's out the door. Like I said, we don't have in some areas of the country, it's Independent Christian Church or it's Church of Christ Instrumental. The Midwest, that's a lot of them, you find them that way. So we started visiting here. So as people started to get to know me, and it came out that I had done ministry, and that's what started with Bill, is we were having a conversation one day back in January or February of last year, and so he contacted me. He's like, "Did I hear you say something about you were doing pastoral ministry?" And I maybe, because you're like, where's he going with this? But that was a discussion about the college students and the Sunday school class, and then once again, COVID kicked in the door and knocked down the walls and upended everything. So here we are. So out of that conversations and work, talking with Bill and conversations with the elders, here we are. So any of that, any questions or comments or anything maybe I left out that you feel like is important, or maybe something I said I shouldn't have said? You can go ahead and let me know about that too. Anything? Good.
Did you talk about your faith a lot at the hospital when you have people that lose loved ones and you have to talk with them? Does that come up a lot? I imagine it probably would.
Yes. That's a really good question. The question is, working in the hospital, do we share our faith? It's It's a state hospital. At Mercy, oddly enough, it's a little different, as I'm learning, because that is a Catholic hospital. But as a state hospital, there are limits. But if they bring it up, Katie, bar the door. I mean, that's basically if they bring it up. There have been times when I would visit, because we in our department we try to visit each new admit to the hospital, and my time as a chaplain, I've been stiff-armed. Save it. You have a good day. We're always available if you need anybody to talk to. If you have any questions, you can always contact us. And you move on. So be it. And chaplaincy, the nature of its work, is the word. It's not really ecumenical. Interfaith. So you can have Jewish chaplains, Muslim. We've had a Buddhist go through the program. We've had a Wiccan go through the program. Atheists ask about it, and so on. But because it's Oklahoma, but because of really the nature of the work, it's predominantly Christian. And so, yes, if the family brings it up. But if they don't bring it up, we're still there as a church administrators. We're part of the healthcare team, non-clinical. And so then we just, our work in Office of Decedent Affairs, here's some material for bereavement, and here's some information about area funeral homes, and we also handle do not resuscitate paperwork or healthcare proxies if someone wants to do those things. So yes, we do. But they have to start. Yeah. And so that was much like my work on campus. They have to start. Any other questions or?
What kind of Pop-Tarts do you get to?
Well,
Strawberry.
yeah, frosted strawberry. Well, it turns out it was frosted strawberry or brown sugar. Specifically, not because of favorites or anything, but that's what Sam's carries. And so, learning from my father-in-law, he was the master at stretching a dollar. And so, the cheapest Pop-Tarts turned out to be brown sugar and frosted strawberry. So that's what we gave out. We had we had one time because you're tabling, so you're introducing yourself to students if they want to sign up for clubs and everything. Some people didn't bring anything. Some people brought candy or whatever, but I was like, nah, I got a big guy. We're gonna go big. So we'd show up with ice cream. So I'd go buy tons of those little single-serve ice cream things, and it'd show. We had one semester. It was a pack mule. We had three coolers full of ice cream that I had to drink. And that was the thing about campus ministries. We don't have an office. There's no room or anything. So you pack it in and pack it out. It's much slimmer in those days. But a little ice cream. One semester we gave out Pop-Tarts. That was the best because everybody was walking around. Not Pop-Tarts. Frozen. Thank you, popsicle. Pop is in the word. That was throwing me off. Popsicles, and everybody's all about. No, you don't have to sign up. You don't. No, you want a popsicle? Take it. Have a good day. People walk around eating popsicles, and so that's the week. That was one day I met someone, and they're like from a different club in a meeting or something. They told them who I was. It was the campus minister, the community sponsor, and oh, you're the popsicle people. And I was just like, that's the best. That's an okay reputation, you know. And so. So ice cream, Pop-Tarts, popsicles. So the Atheist Club one time, I didn't do this, I was tempted. The Atheist Club on campus, I don't know how familiar everybody is, but there's the made-up god for atheists is the spaghetti monster, and they have a whole story behind it. Well, their club, they brought vats and vats of cooked noodles, and that was pretty funny. They were handing out buttered noodles or whatever. They didn't have any sauce. I was real tempted the next semester to bring vats of sauce. Well, sure, they gave you noodles, but here, we're going to give you the sauce. But the logistics on that was a bit too much. So Any other questions or comments? Anything? Yeah.
You know, I'd like to say you mentioned it being a God thing several times, and I think, anyway, from my view, I think we kind of looking at you being here when you're here and what you're doing and getting involved is, to me, I think it is a God thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're giving us a fresh look at a lot of stuff, and I think that's what we need. You know, we're always trying to figure out how best can we serve God here at Ridgecrest.
Right.
And to me, you're giving us some fresh look at things and kind of giving us a new perspective. And you know, I think it probably is a God thing. I think that's our trust that it is. And
Right.
go
Yeah.
there and continually try to do better.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
I'm definitely glad. I mean, and the conversations like with Bill, because it was one of those things to where like that first conversation we were talking about the college students before COVID started. We ended that conversation, and he said, "I got to tell you, I've written notes down, but everything you've said to me is what people have come to me requesting for a college group or whatever. You've already answered these things, and I haven't even told you about it." And when stuff like that happens, I get goosebumps even now just thinking about it. It's like, okay, obviously God's involved. When he's answering things and nobody's even asked the question yet, it's like, whoa. And I love stuff like that because the flip side of that is like, okay, good, I'm on the right channel. It's nothing worse than like, I'm on the wrong channel. I need to stop doing this. I am tuned in. So yeah, I think so too. It's all kind of I try to see big picture as much as possible. I try to see God's point of view. And a lot of times we don't get that just as humans for years down the line. But this is a Romans 8:28 situation, if you will. COVID really upended things, made us learn some new things, and we're doing some new things. We've lost some people. I lost a very dear friend of mine a few weeks ago to it. And we've had to change the way we live for the past year or so and so on. But God was always at work in the midst of that the whole time, knowing that there would be a vaccine, knowing we would come out of this, and leading us and inspiring us and say, okay, so when that does get lifted, helping us get ready to go. So. And they said that's a retail thing too. I don't know if anybody's ever had that experience, but I've done pretty much everything, by the way. Restaurants, retail, service industry, now healthcare, little ministry work here and there kind of sprinkled in. But that's a very retail thing to do is someone comes in, and so if that's your store and you're in, day out, you've set it up, you've done your displays and everything, but someone else comes in and says, why is this? This doesn't look very good. Oh yeah, that doesn't look very good, does it? Those fresh eyes, the fresh ears, that helps us sometimes because we do we're creatures of habit. And that's not bad. That's not a critique on anything. It's just sometimes we like our ruts. And the older we get, we really like our ruts, and we don't want anybody changing our ruts. But sometimes there's a paved road right there. You don't need ruts anymore. And God's saying, hey, here's a smoother road right here. Let's go this way. Questions, comments, anything else on that one?
You're getting pushback on college campuses?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was to be expected. I'm going to be very honest with you. I can tell you guys, there were days where I would have to go find a quiet little place on campus, and I was just bawling. I was just overwhelmed. And it's a mixture of things. I'm thankful God called me into that. He put me there. He was with me. But then it's a Jesus web kind of thing. You're overwhelmed, like, man, this world is really broken. There's so much need. And to me, that's what was just my heart broke because of the need for Jesus and the complete misunderstanding of Jesus. I had so many conversations where people would bring up stuff in the Bible, and I said, can we talk about it? I was always trying to be very respectful of their times. When you brought it up, do you mind if we talk about it? Can I share? And they said yes, just because I worked really hard at building relationships to where we could get to that point. And invariably, with the non-believers, they had their critiques of the Bible, and the conversation would end with, oh, I didn't know that. Because they were working off of what they thought the Bible said, or what someone had told them the Bible had said. And I was like, that's actually not, it's not there at all, or that's not what it says. Yeah, and there were times I had some odd spiritual experiences. Not odd. Odd's not. Coffee shop was my office. I was hanging out there drinking coffee. That's where people could find me. So if you got out of class, you were looking for me, that's where I'd be. It's also where it's a central area, so I'd see people, hi, how are ya? I'm going to tell you one secret. If you meet someone, you learn their name, and you remember it, and you see them several days later, you say, hi, Sally. That's gold. Wow, I just met him. He remembers my name. So I was always really practicing learning names. That's golden. It's those little bitty things, because that respects them, and it gives them dignity, and you recognize them as a person, not as a, hey, you, buddy, you know. So we're sitting there. I was having a conversation with this young man, and we're just talking about anything. It's a good conversation. We talk about this, that, and the other. And then he was finally like, well, you're in this class, but what are you doing here? Why are you here? What's this all about? Well, actually, I'm a campus minister. And his mood changed like that. His whole persona, his whole attitude changed. And all I had to do was say, I'm here as a campus minister. And so I don't believe any of that. I don't have any time for that. I think that stuff is a bunch of baloney and a few other colorful words in there. He said, I don't even have time for that. And he got up and left. I answered his question. I'm not going to hold back from that. I didn't say anything else. I hadn't hit him with anything else yet. And that was his reaction. And from what I felt in that moment, but I honestly, that was a spiritual thing. Something had really gotten hold of him. And so, those times in the Bible with Jesus or with Paul walking around, the demonic does not react well to our presence. Yeah, push back. Yeah. But my goal really was, I'm pretty simple. I'm all about emphasizing and believing that you're sowing the seeds. It's all the gardening stuff. If it's a new field and you're wanting to grow something there, you have to dig up all the rocks, and you have to make the soil, make sure you got the right soil there and the right nutrients, and moisture is available, and so on. So you're working through all this, and then you put your seeds down. So it's all part of the work, especially in a new campus ministry. And maybe this was a small goal, but if nothing else, with those non-believing staff members and professors and students, they're like, oh yeah, Christians, I just don't have time. Except for this one guy. There was this one guy, he was a Christian, he was all right. And if I could do that in someone's life, where you can just change them 1 degree, God can work with that. He's already working. Kind of rearranging their view. So, time's up? Is that the orchestra? I want to thank the Academy. It's about 7:15, but I can share a quick thought with you. But I just want to make sure any other questions we address, so you can kind of get to know me. So no more, who is this guy? What does he think he is?
One thing I might say is our job as the church family is not to just give you a job to do the work. Because we're the family. And so our job is to work together.
Right.
And so that's what we're looking forward to is things that we can do, that we can all try to be more involved in and try to look at, see what we need to do, and work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's our, where we're at as when we examine ourselves as Christians, and we have to always do that, where you catch yourself, am I just showing up, going home? Showing up and going home.
Yeah.
So we have to do things. Not just say, well, we hired this guy and he's going to do it.
Yeah. I'm so glad he's out there doing that. Yeah. at Draper, they were my church. They were the home church. That's where so much had happened. But I used to joke. I really felt like they were very supportive, very loving. But I felt like, like when I wasn't around there, like kind of had a view of me as John the Baptist. And if I showed up wearing clothing made from camel hair and dipping my locusts in some honey, they would have been like, "Hey, Cadmus, how you doing? You need some coffee with that?" I mean, they wouldn't even, because they were like, "I'm so glad you're doing that work out there. So I'm glad you're over there doing that." And I always thought that was kind of a weird statement, Maybe just trying to get rid of me. Anyway. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Ernie. That's a very big thing for me. Two things is Ephesians chapter 4. And then in Peter, the priesthood of all believers. As certain scriptures are part of what motivates me, part of my mission statement, so to speak, it's those two. And Ephesians chapter 4 is that it kind of lays out that you do have staff members, you do have vocational ministers, professional clergy, however we want to look at it. But Ephesians chapter 4 says, yeah, you have those people, they have one specific job, to train everybody else. We're going to have teachers, we're going to have evangelists. And so I got that from Jay. He was always hammering on that one. About a priest of all believers, because if I'm doing it, there's a limitation on what can be done. But if everybody in this room was doing it, the numbers it's exponential. You can't stop the numbers. So yeah, that's a big part of who I am. So that's another thing is as much as I'll preach whenever I can, I'll teach whenever I can, we'll have some programs whenever, but I would like to have some time when we do some training. We do some role playing. You guys, you're here tonight, so here's a warning. If you ever say to me, I want to do this, I'm really concerned about it, but I'm just afraid, I'm like, giddy up. We're going to spend some time together. Because part of what I think has brought me here, and I was talking to Bill about this after a meeting last week, it finally kind of occurred to me that I wasn't the new guy anymore, so to speak, in ministry. And then I had some things I was responsible for, accountable for sharing with others. And that was brand new for me, because I'm always, up to this point, I've always been learning from everybody else. But my experience now, I can share that. And to me, practicing and role-playing is the best way to do those things. Because like I said, there's no question I haven't thought myself or haven't been asked. And there is no question God's not going to answer. We may not like the answer, but God has an answer. So yeah, so that's part of it too. We'll do some practicing. And if you feel like I'm kind of worried about saying the wrong thing or messing things up, well, first of all, that's not going to happen. We're not perfect, and no one expects to be perfect. That's a big lie from Satan, is that we have to go out and be perfect evangelists. If someone asks you something you don't know, I'm going to let you know right now. I'm going to empower you. It's okay to say, I don't know. There's a lot of freedom in being able to say, I don't know. And I did it with college kids, and it really made a big impact. And they told me so. But they would ask me questions. You know what? I'm not real sure on that one. I'm going to get back to you. Look it up. Talk to somebody. And then get back to them. That's very valuable with people. Because they see that there's some humility there. That you're honest and that you care. That's the main thing is that you care. I'll get back to you. Well, they really are interested in letting me know. It's all those little things adds up with people. So stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely a big part of it is that
those things come up,
Yeah.
It always, we all have a situation where somebody out of the blue come up and you get to interact with them and maybe you help them or maybe you tell them something and then it's over and you think,
Yeah.
I should have said that.
Oh boy.
Dead.
Yeah.
And so by that practicing or like I used to do when I had a crew at the plant and we had a lot of boring times and nothing going on. But then when something happened, it was quick and furious and dangerous and bad.
Right.
It was really quick. And so my number one way to help the crew to be prepared was scenario thinking. Is, I would just say,
Yep.
okay, here we are, this just blew up down here. This is doing this and this is doing that. What do we do? What's our first reactions?
Mhm.
And so we just did scenario play. And that's that practice, is
Yep.
to be thinking, what would we say? What would we do? How would we help people?
Yep.
What's our thoughts?
I think even what you're talking about might be in the Bible. This guy named Peter said, in any situation, be ready with an answer. That's a Cadmus paraphrase, so don't quote me on that one. But yeah, and I always use the example of any human endeavor. Athletics, music, if you play an instrument, you don't just do it from day one. Athletics, music, the law, attorneys, they practice law. Physicians, they're practicing medicine, because you don't know it all. You're constantly having to do these things. Anything we do, if there's anything that we're good at, cooking. If you want to move beyond boiling water, or if you want to learn how to boil water, we got to practice to get there, And I wholeheartedly believe that anybody can do anything. And it's just the practicing thing. It's that learning those things. And it's the same thing with this stuff here. This is a practice. And if outreach, if evangelism is our practice, just like what you're saying, you're prepared for the bad stuff to happen if we've kind of worked through it with each other in a safe environment and worked through things. So yeah, I'd like to be part of that too, with anybody that wants to kind of work through it.
What instrument did you play?
So
Instruments, maybe.
trumpet, so that's where the loudmouth comes from, is a trumpet player, all the way up, say 3 years in the Pride at OU, men's basketball band, women's basketball band. So that's why I'm kind of fanatical, is done my fair share of cheering. But I've recently, this year, taken up bass guitar. I've always wanted to learn bass guitar, and I've dabbled with piano. There's a little bit of piano there. So I love music. I could live without a TV. You can have my radio when you pry it from my cold, dead fingers. I love music. I'm always constantly listening to it. So our kids are musicians. Autumn's a musician. She's done a lot. She's got a funny story, because she played oboe in band. Well, there's no marching oboe. I don't know if anybody realizes that. So in high school, she marched with a bass drum. And then in OU, her brother plays saxophone. She marched with a sax. She plays piano. She's given lessons for many people over many years. So music is just a big part of our life. She's played in, her mom played in church. She's played. So our kids do. So I always make a joke is, well, what if a trumpet player and a saxophone player from the Pride get married? Well, you have two percussionists. So I don't know. Genetics, I don't know how that works. But Jordan, so Adam has done band for the fun part of it, because he did enjoy it, but the social aspects of it, not like me, thankfully. But also, Jordan, just like you guys, everybody knows this. So Adam math was his first language, science and so on. But Jordan's the artist. She is the creative, drawing and writing. But she's a percussionist, but she plays piano. She's been learning guitar this year, and she sings. I tell you what, and I'm not just biased. She's done a few recordings. She'll let us record if you heard it. She's gifted. I'm moved to tears every time I hear her. She's really good, and she's always like, no, I don't want to. Which is good. I don't want her to go out there and, but she's got a gift. So music's a big aspect of it. But, so yeah, trumpet. So that answered your question, and then extended it for several minutes.
Okay.
All right. Hey, so we filled the hour. Anything else? Just like what kind of Stephen was doing, I'll send up, but I did finally get my first article in. And that's another avenue I'm doing, kind of sharing my thoughts and kind of sharing the approach and stuff. And as you'll probably see already, and maybe Yvonne, who does he think he is writing this stuff? But I ask a lot of questions. It's in my nature. Thankfully, God's okay with that. He even says so in his own word. But if you are feeling strongly about this and you're wanting to do more and get more, these questions are in there for reflection and for learning. I'm asking those questions as if we were face to face. And no, I can't find it. Dang it. But it's in Isaiah when God says, "Come, let us." There we go. Verse 18. "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord." And I've used that with the non-believers too. God's not afraid of your questions. He's God. He's not afraid of your questions. And he says it himself, "Come, let us reason together." Now, within the context of that, he's saying, be ready to listen. Be ready to take hold of the answer I'm going to give you. But I'll take your questions. So, all right. Is that good? All right. Let me, can I close with some prayer?
Sure.
All right. Heavenly Father, we love you so much. We know you're here right now. We know in your word you tell us this, but we know that it's amazing. It's a miracle that you live within us. That's your promise to us, that you're always there. But we ask also that in the examples you give in your word that we're filled with your Spirit. Overwhelm our pride, overwhelm our opinions and our agendas. Lord, we seek you, and we hope to preach your name, to proclaim it, to teach, just to share your love with those that need it, because we know there's no life without it in our own lives. And we want to come and submit ourselves to you and before you, and in whatever way that we have put up any kind of barrier between us and you. Show that to us. Show us where we need to confess. Show us that we can repent. We can turn from that. That you can forgive us. That you do want us to live life to the fullest. As always, I hope that each word that is shared is a beautiful offering to you, that it does glorify you. We continue to ask that this week at camp with Bill and Amy, everyone there, everyone working, everyone leading, everyone teaching, and with all the kids, all the students, everybody that's there, each and every person, you draw very close to them. You fill them up as well. Call their name. Draw them into your kingdom. Be with us each and every moment, each and every day. Let us always be ready to share your good news. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.